know who made it.
Welcome to the Quarter Podcast, the podcast that refuses to look away. So every now and then we sit down and have the conversations that most people are afraid to start. About money, about debt, about what it really means to be a Zambian civil servant, trying to keep your head above water because behind every payslip there is a human being, a nurse, a teacher, a soldier, a father, a mother, and too many of them are drowning in silence. So this is a space where that silence ends. The Kwacha podcast was born out of a simple but urgent question. Why are the very people who run this country among the most financially vulnerable? We are a community for Zambia's civil servants, a place for honest conversations about financial challenges, real solutions, and the kind of empowerment that goes beyond a tip sheet or a saving app. We bring you union leaders, policymakers, economists, lawyers, mental health experts, and today's someone who sits across the table from people in financial pain every single day and helps them find a way forward. I'm your host, Natasha Mwewa. Now, my guest today is someone who has heard it all. The zero payslip, the borrowed to pay a loan story, the shame that walks in the door before the client does. Milambo Mizinga is a personal finance coach who has worked extensively with individuals and civil servants navigating the crushing weight of debt. Mizinga doesn't deal in theory. Mizinga deals in people, real numbers, and real paths forward. So, Milambo, welcome to the Quarter Podcast. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Wow, thank you very much. Give us a bit of background. I know I gave a bit of a background, just a brief background about yourself, so that someone who's just joining us can know a little bit about you.
Okay, so very briefly, I'm a business and personal finance consultant as well as an entrepreneur, full-time entrepreneur. So dealing with money, issues of money, how to make money, how to manage your money, how to grow your money, that is something that I deal with on a daily basis.
Interesting. How long have you been doing this?
Since 2018.
Oh, wow. Wow. I bet how's the success rate? The people that you've dealt with, how's it been?
It's been quite a journey. I've dealt with all categories of people. There are people who are serious, there are people who are not serious, there are people who are committed to the process, there are those who don't know what they're looking for in life. So I've dealt with a diverse type of people.
Okay. So, dear listener, in case you're just joining us, this is the Kwacha Podcast. I'm your host, Natasha Mwewa. Now, you have worked with a number of people, including civil servants, and there is plenty of financial advice online and offline, budgeting apps, saving tips, investment strategies, yet we have a number of people who remain trapped in debt. Where is the gap between advice and actual financial freedom for a Zambian civil servant?
You see, that is such an interesting question and extremely important. And I hope people can pay attention to what I'm about to say. There's a lot of financial advice and financial knowledge, financial education out there. But the key question is, how many people are actually taking the time to learn? Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about reading a post as you're just scrolling on social media and then you find a post maybe from Inspiration with Milambo and it's on financial literacy and you read it and you take it that you're learning financial literacy. No, that's not what it means to learn financial literacy. So if you want to learn financial literacy in a way that will actually transform your life and your finances, you have to take it as a personal study. And you can't do that with one post. You can't do that with one seminar. You can't do that even with one book, because it takes time for you to change as an individual,
Okay.
because you need that paradigm shift to happen within you. You know, when let's say you read a book, you get inspired, you get excited. Oh, what I've read looks like it's going to change my mind. And then what's going to happen is that you're going to go out there and repeat the same mistakes that you've been making. And then you start wondering, how is it that I read, but I'm still making the same decisions, the same bad or wrong decisions? The thing is, you need to take time to keep learning and learning, because as you're learning, what it's doing is that it's rewiring your mindset. It's changing your habits, because as I always say, the way we deal with money is embedded in the money habits ingrained in our minds. So for you to change the way you deal with money, first of all, you have to change the money habits within you. And that's a process which takes time and intentional effort,
Okay.
not just randomly reading one article here or there. And that is what I find very common among many people.
So yeah, there's no time frame attached to it.
So there's no specific time frame. You can feel it when the change happens. You will know, because it's a result oriented thing. You know, you will see that, oh, now the way I'm handling money is different from the way I used to handle. The way I'm making my financial decisions. Oh, now I'm able to maybe to stop impulse buying. I have really reduced on my financial indiscipline. I've started saving. Now I'm able to invest. You can see the difference in your life. So if you're not seeing that difference, you need to go back to class.
Okay, interesting there. So, dear listener, I hope you've heard that not just one conference and you feel okay. I'm now I'm now this new person. Okay, so now let's be honest with our listeners there. So a number of people don't borrow to invest or buy luxuries. You really, they borrow for rent, school fees, and food before month end. So when borrowing is for survival, what does financial discipline even mean? How do you advise someone whose problem isn't poor choices, but that the salary simply doesn't stretch that far?
Okay, so usually I have a lot of things to say about this one. I have to really find the best words. So let's start from the beginning. If you have an income and you are borrowing for your necessities, for your survival, what happened to your income? Because your income is supposed to be for that very purpose. At the very least, your income should be able to cater for your survival, for your very basic needs. So if your income is not able to cater for that, my question becomes, where did it go? What happened to it? Because one of the things that I strongly teach is learning to live within your means. Most of the times when I speak to people and I find that they have an issue of debt, most of them are living beyond their means. So what do I mean by that? If let's say your income is 8,000, but your financial responsibilities are 15,000, that already tells you that you're living above your means. So whatever has brought you to the place where you are now living above your means, you need to sit down and ask yourself, why are my expenses to this extent when my income is at this level? Because if your income is 8,000, then your lifestyle should be equal to 8,000. And there are times when people will say, no, it's a genuine need because I have to take care of my uncle's child, my what. All those things are good causes, but if you can't manage, you can't manage. You know, sometimes you have to help yourself before you can help others. But if we are trying to help everybody, we are all going to sink together and there'll be no one to bring the other one out. So you have to make sure that you learn to live within your means.
Interesting there. So what if I'm living within my means, but still my salary just can't suffice?
Why can't it suffice? You know what? One thing I did a video one time and I said, I think having dealt with, because every time I deal with a client, I deal with different kinds of people, I sit down to really think, why that situation? Why did that person find themselves in that? Why did they make that such a decision? And one thing I have found is many people don't accept where they are. We have to learn that life is seasonal. If you are in a season where the financial situation is tight, you can't afford to live in luxury. You have to accept that. I can't afford to live in luxury. If I have to eat sweet potatoes for breakfast, let me eat sweet potatoes for breakfast. If I have to eat shima with rep, let me eat shima with rep. But then you have an income which can only cater for shima with rep, but you want chicken and sausage and T-bone every day. That is living above your means. Your income can only support you to take a child to government school. You want to take your child to private schools because you want to compete with Vanamulenga and Vanamsonda, Vanabanda, because that's where they are taking all their kids. This is one thing that I find very prevalent, because I like to get down to the nitty-gritties. When somebody comes to me with a situation, we get down to the serious details. Okay, so what do you eat for breakfast? It may sound like it's a joke, but really, when you calculate how much is bread, and bread is something we buy every day. At the end of the month, how much have you spent on bread alone? And maybe milk and butter or whatever your preference is. These are all seemingly little things, but trust me, when you start to do financial auditing, that's when you realize that little amounts add up. And most of the times when I'm speaking to people about these things, I ask them, do you budget? No. Do you do financial audits? No.
Okay, quite interesting there. So most of the people are living beyond their means. We're living like to impress.
Living to impress and not taking time to inculcate basic financial principles, like I mentioned, budgeting and financial auditing. When I say budgeting, what do I mean? I mean, when your salary, this is something I see, like, you have no idea how my heart burns when I see this behavior, because I see it everywhere, I hear it everywhere. Somebody, their salary hits somebody's account. They're already on their way to ShopRite, Hungry Lion, wherever. They're already at the ATM, withdrawing. They have not taken the time to sit down and write a proper budget to plan for their money. That is so important that I live by it, I swear by it, because really you can't be financially disciplined just in your mind. There are times when you say, no, I'm good with money. No, you're not good with money until paper tells you that
write it down.
Yes, paper should tell you that you're good with money. Number one, if you can write a proper financial plan, not even a long-term one. We'll get to that later. I don't know if we'll have time for that in this conversation, but just the monthly plan where you say, this is the income, this is the money I have received. What can I afford without going into debt, without running out of money by the 15th? You sit down and say, okay, so for my groceries, this is what I can do. In terms of helping the extended family, this is how far I can go. In terms of luxuries, this is how far I can go. In terms of debt repayment, this is what I can do. All right, we don't just start spending money in her, because when you start spending money, you don't realize when you're going out of your boundaries, because what that budget does is that it creates a boundary for you. And that's what many people don't like. They don't want the restriction, but you need the restriction whether you like it or not, because when we're talking about the simple definition of economics, we say it's what? It's managing limited resources against unlimited needs or unlimited wants. So as human beings, we have unlimited wants. There are 1,000 million things that we want at every given point, but the resources are always limited.
Just have to manage.
Yeah, so that's what a budget does. Before you spend even a coin of it, sit down and write down a budget. It's and make sure you follow it. Because I've also had people who tell me, I wrote the budget and then I went and bought other things.
Overboard. I see. It's quite interesting. So you're listening to the Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Natasha. And we are hosting Milambo Mizinga, who is a financial expert. She's a financial advisor, actually. And we're having quite an interesting conversation here today. So now, debt carries deep shame in our culture. So many people, including professionals, like soldiers or nurses, just to mention a few, feel embarrassed to admit that they are struggling actually. And so they hide it, they avoid help, and sometimes spiral deeper into it. So how do you, as a coach, break through that shame in a one-on-one session? What do you say to a client who walks in feeling like they're a failure?
You know, the issues of debt are such a serious and prevalent issue in our country that it's so, it's a matter of agency. We need agent intervention for many people. And for me, like I mentioned from the first question, the first intervention is financial literacy, financial understanding, financial education. Because the thing is, when you lack financial understanding, it doesn't matter what your income is. You will always make wrong decisions with your money, not because you want to be careless, not because you are a bad manager, no, just because you lack understanding. This is something that has to, like I mentioned also, that we have money habits, or what we call money personalities. But those are changeable with information. One thing I don't do is create or attend pity parties. I'm sympathetic. I'm a coach. This is what I'm called to do. But I'll not sit down and cry with you. I will point it out. What missed it? That's why anybody you can attest who has ever come to me and said I'm in debt, I always ask, how did you get yourself in debt? How did you find yourself in debt? What put you in debt? Because I want to understand the roots. You see, issues of debt are a result. They're a fruit. And there's always a root. So if you don't deal with the root, you'll always be dealing with the fruit. And you'll be wondering, why is this person always in debt? If, for example, somebody's problem is gambling, and this is another very important thing, which is putting many people in debt, and many people are not talking about it. They're just slipping through the inbox to say, this is what I'm going through. Their wives are not aware. Their children are not aware. Their employers are not aware that this is what they're struggling with. But many people, I'll tell you because I received the messages, many people are struggling with that. And the end result is what? The salary comes in and it all goes to gambling because it has become what? An addiction. And this is something that society is not talking about. So if somebody is in debt because of gambling, you don't just rush to deal with the debt situation. You have to deal with the gambling situation. If someone is in debt because of financial indiscipline, you don't just deal with debt. You deal with the financial indiscipline problem. You see, if it's mismanagement because of lacking financial literacy, what they need is that education, that understanding. All right. So we always have to find the root before we can deal with the fruit. Otherwise, you keep paying and repaying loans, getting one not to pay another, and it will feel like it's not ending because you're not dealing with the root which has put you in that situation.
Yeah, I actually heard someone say, when I get from this end, I go to paying this side, and then I get from another place.
What kind of life is that?
No, not a good life, obviously. So I don't know the the 60-40 rule, the policy that says only 40% of a civil servant's salary should go to the deductions, but we both know, really. And it's a civil servant meeting here today with zero pay slips. And where 100% is gone, like literally gone. And when a client comes to you with a zero pay slip, really, what practical options do they actually have? Not theory. What can they do right now to feed their children? No pay, zero on the pay slip.
Okay, so there was a gentleman, and I received many messages, many calls, many situations, but I'll just give an example for a gentleman who told me that he had that situation, and when I asked how he found himself in it, he said he got the loan to build a house, but he did not finish building the house. So now they have to deduct, the house can't, pay it for itself because it's not complete. So he's repaying that loan, and now he's worried because that is something that may take forever because he doesn't have any additional money to finish that house, right? And yet it has put him in a situation where he can't feed his family, or rather, where he said he has very little, to feed the family. So I asked him what changes he had made in his lifestyle. He said none. And one thing I say to him, and that I say to everybody, is that you can't insist on living life the way you've always lived when you have mountain debt. You have to make adjustments as soon as possible with immediate effect. If you are eating chicken, you have to announce to everybody. If that with DSTV, if you're on premium, either you downgrade or
You do away with
you
it.
do away with it.
Totally.
You're not going to die. Meals, schools, homes, cars. I advise sell. You have 3 cars, sell one. You have 2 cars, sell one. You know, uh, if you have children in expensive schools, move them to cheaper schools or to government schools. They are not going to die because you are in a situation which might just kill you if you don't make those adjustments. But this is one thing that I have found many people don't want to do. They will be complaining, but at the same time, they want to maintain, because, issues of money have a lot to do with psychology. So I also study the psychology of decisions. Why is this person doing this? Yes, they have this mountain debt, but they are refusing to let go of their lifestyle. It's what you talked about. People are covered in shame and they don't want people to know. So they want to maintain that standard, that status.
Fake it till you
Yes, they don't want anybody to know that this is what is happening. But because they know that once they start selling, they change schools, then people will start to gossip about them. Banagwa, all this, so far be it from them that it's better that you suffer for 3-6 months, but you go back to normal. It's not even going to be forever. That's just the truth. It's not going to be forever. But if you keep insisting on living life the way we've always wanted, then it will be forever.
I hear you. Quite interesting, though. All right, dear listener, this is the Quarter Podcast, and this is the place where we discuss financial matters that matter to you and I, and the podcast that refuses to look away from the debt burden, the financial burden that people have. So now, final question, Milambo. You sit with people every day who are drowning. You see the numbers, and you know how hard the road is. How do you balance being honest about the struggle and not giving false hope, while you're still leaving your clients believing that their situation can actually change? And what's the source of your own optimism?
Like I mentioned during the introduction, that I am a business and personal finance coach, which means I have 2 offices, the business consultancy and the financial consultancy. What does business do? In business, we teach people how to make money. In financial literacy, we teach people how to manage and grow the money they have made. Now, here's one thing that I have found with people who have job security. People get so relaxed just because they don't want to think about business. They don't want to create any side hustle. They don't want to do anything. They're just so relaxed. They're so comfortable. That in itself is one of the biggest reasons why many people are drowning in debt. You see, anything that puts you in a comfort zone is your enemy, especially when it comes to finances. Many people are stuck because they think their salary is their only source of income.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn to expand your mindset. Think beyond your salary. Learn to hustle. Start a business. Do something over the weekend. Don't just attend kitchen parties and weddings and chilanga moridos. No, start something. When you go home, there are teachers who knock off by 10 hours. They are home. What are you doing from 10 hours up to the following day? You can go and run a full-time business. You go and run a business, so we have to learn to expand our means. So I usually say, yes, it's good to live within your means, but while you're living within your means, you should also learn to expand your means. Because it doesn't make sense for somebody to be in employment for 30 years and they've been getting, let's say, 8,000, 15,000 to 30 years later, that's still their income. No. No, no, no. Where is the development in your life? They should be that sign of development that is happening um, incrementally to show that someone is thinking, someone is expanding, someone is trying something here and there. And in that vein, I've had people who've come to me and say that where I work, they actually don't allow me, or the company policy is you are not allowed to start a side business. So my advice for somebody who's in that situation is make that job temporal. Trust me, it's for your future. There's no way you can wait until you retire to go and start your first business. You go and experiment with your pension. That's how people die early.
Right? And it all goes.
Yeah, because you know the thing about business is that it's not guaranteed, right? It's not guaranteed. There's a lot of risk. That's why you have to start early, because the first part of business is not for profit, it's for learning purposes. So some people will say, but I can't start a business because there's a lot of failure in business. It's part of the process. Ask any millionaire, even Elon Musk, who's the richest man in the world, ask him his failures. He'll give you a list. Mark Zuckerberg, he'll give you a list. Anybody who is successful at business will give you a list of their failures. It's part of the process. That's why you need to start early. Don't wait until you retire for you to finally start experimenting. You're old. You don't have the energy. You don't have any excess income. You only have that pension. That's not money to risk on a new business you've never done before. You don't even have any entrepreneurial skills. That's a risk in itself. So my final advice is you have to learn to be entrepreneur. That one is something I don't even joke about, and it's non-negotiable. In this world that we live in, don't just depend on one income stream. You have to create additional streams of income.
So people would say, no, there are not enough opportunities.
Entrepreneurs create their own opportunity. Well, then that's the thing, because when we say you have to learn to be entrepreneurial, there's a mindset which is actually entrepreneurial. There's a mindset. There's an article that I wrote. I said you have to learn the difference between the employee mindset and the entrepreneurial mindset. There are two different mindsets. There are two different playing fields. They have different rules. It's completely different. And I learned that for myself. It's not something I read in a book. I learned that because I started with employment, then I went into entrepreneurship, and then I was like, oh my God, this is a whole different world with its own rules, with its own mindset, its own habits. If you try to take that mindset, or the employee mindset, into entrepreneurship, you're going to fail from day one, and you go already, So you have to adjust, and you have to know that failure doesn't mean that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I hear people say, don't stop advising. I remember one time talking about this thing, and someone said they were complaining about their finances not being enough. And then they said, but don't ask me to start a business because entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I said, so what do you want? You don't want to be advised. You just want
the money to fall from heaven.
Yes, that's one thing that is one thing that people want. And that's why loans feel like they are the answer. A loan is not free money. It's not. It may feel good in the moment, but trust me, the aftertaste is really bitter. So don't always rush to loans as a solution. The question you have to ask yourself is not where should I borrow? It's how can I make more money? How can I generate more income for myself? The second question is more long term, and that's why people don't like it, because we want money now. If you say you're going to start a business, you have to start by putting money into the business before it can start giving you money. But trust me, once that business succeeds, it's going to pay you 10 times, 100 times over. Right? So don't be discouraged when you start, things are not going well, you're failing. It's part of the process. That's why we business consultants also exist, because we help people. I help people all the time who come to me that this is the business I'm running, and this is what I'm experiencing. What is the problem? And you help them, this. And the next time they're calling you excited. I have no idea. We put in that strategy you told us, and now the results are different. You see, and some of those people are actually civil servants and they're running businesses in the side. And so they don't have that pressure of going towards loans because a loan is a band-aid situation. It will stop the bleeding, but it will not heal the wound.
Interesting stuff. Well, I wish we had more time. Thank you very much for the deeper insights. So, dear listener, we've been talking to Milambo Mizinga, and I hope you felt what I felt, in that conversation. Not just information, but, permission, to face your situation honestly, permission to ask for help, permission to believe in things can change. So thank you very much for having come over.
Thank you for having me. And I really pray that this is something that's going to transform even just one person, because that is the whole point of it. It's not just for listeners to listen and be entertained. We're not here to entertain, we're here to educate somebody, touch a life, change a life. And at the end of the day, hoping that Zambia will be a better nation.
Wow. Thank you very much. So, dear listener out there, if today's episode spoke to you, here is what I want you to do. Share this episode, send it to a colleague, a friend, a family member who you know is struggling but has not said it out loud yet. You might be the reason they take the first step. You can subscribe to the Kwacha Podcast on our YouTube channel. Go to our Facebook page, the Kwacha Podcast. Follow our page for updates. Find links to our YouTube channel as well as Podbean, where you can even download episodes to share as MP3 files and listen at your own time while you're driving, while you cook, run, or wherever life takes you. In addition, if you have a story, a question, or a topic you want us to tackle, reach out to us through our email and WhatsApp contacts, which are on the page. Your voice shapes this show. We will be back soon with another conversation that matters. The Kwacha Podcast is produced by Mukafia Chivamba Kayola and Matthews Musonda. I'm your host, Natasha Moa. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, talk to someone you trust, and remember, your situation is not your identity. Goodbye.